We all
Couldn't
smelled
get in
like
front of it?
No, we smelled like campfire at the end of the day because outside,
Right,
that's
right.
all we smelled.
Yeah.
And then the wind shifted on like Wednesday, and then we finally it cleared up enough for us to be able to see it.
Wow, that's wild. So,
I'd worry about it all the time.
well, 6 o'clock.
Sorry. I know, right?
It's my mansion.
So, yeah,
It is better than mine.
whatever. We've never been there. I'd love to go.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Thank you, Jan. Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. and it's October 21st. It's time to call the Franklin City Council meeting to order. Ms. Jones, roll call, please.
Mr. Austin?
Present.
Mr. Shuck?
Here.
Ms. McGinnis?
Here.
Ms. Nally?
Here.
Ms. Price? Mr. Frying?
Here.
Mr. Taylor? Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brian Reese.
Invite you to join me. Our Father, we come before you tonight. We thank you for the privilege again of being here in City Hall. We pray you bless this meeting, give discernment and wisdom to our council as they consider the business of our city. Thank you for all who serve our city. I pray you be with the items on the agenda tonight. May you bring about the decisions and the outcomes that will be best for our residents and just make this a great place to continue to live, work, and play. I pray you bless our public servants who serve both in elected office and roles like that, but all who serve all the departments, especially those who are first responders. Thank you for all they do to serve and protect us. Bless this night, we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, is there any announcements or public comment that doesn't pertain to the agenda? Seeing no one move forward, we will go on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda for the city council minutes for October 7th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Move to read old business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion to read by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Didn't think so. Item number 1, approval of the 2025 budget forms 1s and summary. As you know, we introduced this September the 16th. We had a public hearing October the 7th, and I did see that the Daily Journal put an article that was pretty accurate in the journal, so I appreciate that. Thank you. And now here we are tonight, October 21st, for adoption. So without any further ado, it's up to the council.
Does any of the council people want to discuss it or anything to add?
I do not.
No.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we will go on to new business.
Move to read new business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 1, ERA declaration request for modern metal roofing, Cornet Roofing, Community Development Specialist Dana Monson.
Yes, good evening. On October the 8th, the Economic Development Commission met and heard 2 abatement cases. The first request was from Modern Metal Roofing, known locally as Cornet Roofing. Mr. Cornet is here tonight, Jan, and he brought before us an addition to his property. He is anticipating building an additional 9,860 square feet to his building and adding 6 new employees. He has an estimate of $1.2 million in investment for his real property and $350,000 for his personal property. The first step that we need to do tonight is the economic revitalization requirement. We do not have an ERA designation for this property. So tonight I am here to request approval of this resolution for the declaration and also to request approval to advertise for the public hearing and schedule that for November 4th. Anything else, Ms. Gray?
Nope, that's it. What we're basically doing is recommending the ERA, but then it will formally be adopted before we can give the request for the abatement at the next meeting, so.
And the next meeting will be November the 4th.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Any questions for Mr. Cornett, or?
Mr. Cornett, do you have anything to add? I don't. Okay.
So I think we need a motion, if you wish, for a declaratory ERA.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we've got that passed, and November the 4th, the tax abatement will come forward.
And we'll formally adopt the declaration.
Yes, ma'am.
What you just did is you recommended the ERA, then we'll have to have a public hearing, and then we'll formally adopt it, then we'll consider the tax abatement at the same time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item, the ERA declaratory request for innovative 3D manufacturing, Community Development Specialist Dana Monson.
Yes, sir. This is basically a repeat of what we just did. This was the second of the 2 abatement requests that the EDC heard on October the 8th. This is coming from Innovative 3D, which is a company that was started here by Chris Beck, who is here this evening. It was started in 2017, right here in Franklin. He is expanding and anticipates building a new building on the corner of Commerce Drive and Linville Way, looking at about a 30,000 square foot facility, hiring 10 new employees over the next 5 years, looking at a $5 million investment in real property and a $2 million investment in personal property. Again, this one was a little bit unique. Ms. Gray, this was originally an ERA, but it had an expiration date on it, so it is no longer valid, so we have to make a new ERA for this property. So that is where we're at tonight. The same conditions, requesting approval for the declaratory, permission to advertise for this, for the public hearing to be held on November 4th.
Just as a refresher for people in the public, the ERA is Economic Revitalization Area, and so in order to get tax abatements, we have to make a determination that this is an appropriate area to revitalize and to give those kinds of tax abatements. So that's why we had to put the cart before the horse a little bit here and make sure that that is an area that is so designated. So that's what we'll do the next time after you make a recommendation to publish it and for consideration at our next meeting.
So, Mr. Beck, we've been through your facility before. It's amazing. I think a lot of prior city council people, including the mayor's, been in your building. And it's a wonderful facility. Excited for you. That said, I make the ERA declaratory request approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
See March 4th. So, next item, request approval of Resolution 2024-15, increasing the credit card limit for the street department and mayor's office credit cards, clerk treasurer Jan Jones.
Yeah, we are, the street department also encompasses fleet, so with all of that, they only had a $5,000 limit, so we're increasing the 3 cars that they have total to 10,000, and then also the mayor's from 5 to 10,000 as well, mainly for one time a year for that Christmas season.
And we've, I think we've already, Jan, remind me, we talked about this a little bit, the Parks Department, I think they're already like at $10,000 and,
They are. Parks is at 10, we put the mayor's at 10, and then the street, which also is fleet, at 10, and active adult centers at 10. Everybody else is at 5.
okay, and the reason, like you said, you just explained why, but as pricing goes up, inflation, it just got to the point that it needed to be done, so we can adopt this tonight if council so chooses.
Move to approve Resolution 2024-15.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll go on to the next item. Request approval of ordinance number 2024-08, Community Development Director Krista Linke. This is introduction tonight only.
Yes. Good evening. This is the ordinance which would appropriate funds for the economic development income tax. This was adopted by the county, I believe, in our second year, so in 2022. We did a capital improvement plan and a spending plan for 2023 and 2024. So the current one that we have will expire at the end of this year. So in order to be able to continue to use those funds, we have to adopt this plan moving forward. There's a minimum requirement that the plan be at least 2 years in length. We did that 2 years for the first time, just being new to this and not really exactly sure how much money we were going to get and what we could use it for and all those kinds of things. And so that's gone very well. And so what we're proposing is a 3-year plan. The next one could be 4 years. I don't know. But so far, this outlines kind of the general categories of what the county economic development income tax can be spent on. So the dollar amounts that you're seeing, there's basically a couple different projects. Project 1 is basically infrastructure projects, roads, utilities, trails, bridges, those kinds of things, any kind of public infrastructure or real estate within the city limits. And so this is for 3 years. That total is for 3 years. So we have brought in approximately $2.4 million a year. So this is 3 years worth of funding that we're looking at the total for. So this is the category that we have listed for $6,300,000. A lot of that is based on the projects that you see in the attached cash flow analysis. So that's something that the mayor and Mark and I put together each month for the redevelopment commission. And we started adding other projects to that list. So if you look at the categories on that, it's not just the integrated TIF, which is the I-65 TIF, and then the US 31 TIF. We've also added on there any kind of grant funds, any other either private developer or other municipalities. We partnered with the county and Whiteland on a couple of things. So that's the not city money category. We had a question about that. And then Board of Works funds are also listed on there. And then the edit fund is the last column there as well. So that shows you the cash flow analysis that changes every month, depending on when grants are awarded, when different things like that happen. And so that, I'm sorry, Tara, that is attached to the annual spending plan, which is my second presentation tonight. So she's looking for something that's not there. It's later. I got ahead of myself. Yeah, it's attached to that. Yeah. So we went ahead and had just taken kind of the general numbers. Like I said, this is just an estimate of what those could be. And there's a couple other categories that we have put funds in previously. So project 2 is any kind of economic development grants or incentives. That's $300,000, and that would be for all 3 years. And then also any kind of redevelopment or economic development areas with planning or remediation, financial assistance. That's $300,000 for 3 years. And then we added a project 4 this year to help provide funding for any kind of operating expenses of the government entity, which help to implement any kind of economic development projects. And that was could include personnel costs. That's $300,000 for 3 years. These are, like I said, these are just estimates. The total is $7,200,000 for 3 years. And then basically what we're declaring is the percentage of funds that will be brought in that will be spent on projects. So we plan to spend all of the funds that are brought in. We do have a bit of a balance starting this year, and so that gives us some kind of leeway as well. But this is basically what we're required to do. If we make any major changes to this, it can be refiled with the state. It doesn't require any kind of vote or anything like that, but this is basically just the requirement from the state of what we need to do before any of those funds can be expended. So it's a nice fund. It allows a lot of flexibility. We've used it when projects, if we have a grant on something and the redevelopment commission has, paid the match or a portion of it. The redevelopment commission's not as flexible. We have to have a resolution every time we want to spend money, and it has to be advertised. And it takes at least 2 weeks, and they only meet once a month, and sometimes it's a $3,000 change order or something like that. That doesn't make sense to pay the attorney and do all the things for, and so the edit funds can cover kind of those last minute changes. So it helps a lot in those kind of situations.
Okay, Krista, and I know the council knows because it was part of our budget whenever we did our budget hearings, $1.2 million out of the edit funds we already have earmarked pretty soon to go to the state for the part of the rest of our share of the US 31 project. And then also, we've talked about Graham Road widening project, not the Graham Road bypass. We're talking about from in between the two roundabouts, have to move a ditch. That's somewhere between $3 and $5 million to do that project. So when we see these kind of funds, I know it instantly hits your mind, what are we going to do with this money? Well,
There's a
it's-
long list of
there's
projects.
a long list of stuff that we can do,
Yeah.
and like we said before, it's kind of a moving target,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to work with the redevelopment commission, trying to work with the funds available, it takes, and Jan, trying to figure out, okay, what is the best place to get this money for? And we know this is coming down the road, that has to come out of this fund.
Yeah.
So all the different funds is kind of confusing, but we're catching
And sometimes
on.
projects change if a development doesn't happen. Like with the Malarkey, we weren't sure, how quickly they were going to start construction. So we had, like, the improvements to Paul Hand were on the cash flow for the last 2 years because that went through 3 different developers before we got one that actually is now building. And so the timing is very fluid, depends. I mean, some things are just out of our control as far as that's concerned. We can't determine when somebody's going to buy a property and put in a $20 million facility and need a road widened, so, yeah.
Okay, so while that one's introduced, is there any questions for Krista on that one? Krista, just stay right there, because if it's all right with you, Chief Cochran, I'm going to skip yours and go to Krista's under other business since she's there.
Sure.
The annual spending plan, you kind of touched on it there a little bit.
did.
So why don't we just go ahead and do it
Yeah,
right now?
this is, I mean, it is a good kind of cross-reference. So this is the annual spending plan this is a new requirement this year for the redevelopment commission. Every year, I feel like they add a requirement of our reporting, which is fine, we have the information, but it's a new form. It's something that the redevelopment commission, so Josh and Ann have heard this already, and you might have heard it again at the Board of Works, so sorry, this is your 3rd time. But this is a spending plan for just the year of 2025. And just a couple highlights of this one. This just shows you, so the Redevelopment Commission has issued 2 bonds. One of them was in 2015, and that was the I-65 TIF bond. So that paid for all the gateway improvements into town and Paris Drive and a lot of the downtown revitalization. So that's a bond payment that's made in 2 installments every year, but the total is $1,355,000. And then there's also a 2019 US 31 TIF bond that is paid for the design of US 31 and allowed us, not the full design, but just the portion that NDOT wouldn't cover, so the trails and some of the pedestrian crossways and walkways that we wanted added as part of the project. They were doing the project anyway. So our total debt payments every year of the money that we bring in through the Redevelopment Commission are $1,945,000. So just some quick numbers, the redevelopment commission between both TIF districts, we bring in a little over $5 million each year, and $2 million of that goes to debt payments. So we're left with about $3.5 million to do projects each year. So that's listed there, the debt payments. And then again, we have kind of the same categories, the capital expenditures, any kind of public infrastructure. Those are listed there. And so this is for 1 year, so that's $2.6 million. And then we have a couple other categories. We can do grants and contributions to any local economic development organizations. Again, this is an estimate, $250,000. And then providing financial assistance to neighborhood development corporations. Basically, that's the Franklin Development Corporation, so that's $500,000. And these are just estimates. That doesn't mean that we're approving those funds to be spent. The RDC would have to still pass resolutions to approve and allocate any of those funds. But that's a total of $5,595,000. So that's the full amount of TIF dollars that are brought in each year. We're also required by state law to notify other taxing entities whether or not there will be any excess TIF. And so part of this plan is to also show that we have plans for the full amount of revenue that we're bringing in, that we have projects planned and waiting to utilize those funds for as well. So that's why the full amount is allocated.
Any questions for Krista on this one?
And this is the one that the cash flow analysis is attached to, so you can see on that projects that were approved in 2024. And then at the bottom, it shows the tax receipts, so the I-65 TIF versus the US 31 TIF, what those receipts are, and then what expenditures are made out of those. And then I also have listed the edit funds on the far right. And like I said, those are approximately 2.4 million. These change every year based on who pays their taxes, and usually they increase because assessed values go up. But we just use numbers from the previous year to plan for the next year. And only once has it been lower. Every other year it's been higher, so.
Krista? What happens if you don't have it allocated? You said it has to be allocated, so.
It does. So we would have to come back and, for the edit funds, we would have to reapprove the plan.
So I think he's asking, though, for this report that you have to turn in for this report. That's new.
Yeah, for the redevelopment commission, this is the first year that we've done this. It doesn't have to be approved by you or the Board of Works. I just wanted to present it to both boards so that kind of transparency, you don't hear about the RDC all that much, but there's a lot of money that flows through there. So the redevelopment commission did adopt it at their meeting last week. And so that just allows us to file the paperwork. It doesn't approve any projects. Each project will come through with a public notice and a resolution.
Krista, and you did say it's a state mandate,
It is.
a new state mandate.
New this year. Yeah, it could change next year. It
Yeah.
usually does.
I think if I heard you right, the answer to Todd's question was, we don't really know what the state would do if we didn't allocate all the funds.
Yeah. I
Oh,
don't,
okay,
I
that
don't really
was
know.
the
This is
question. Do they
a
take them
new-
back, or?
Yeah. No, they won't. They can't, no. Well, I don't know, maybe, but I wouldn't think so, but it's just another step that they have us do for reporting.
It's
for-
just keeping your feet to the fire, I assume.
It is, and all of our, Jan uploads all of our resolutions, all of our expenditures. I give the annual report to you guys every year, showing everything that was spent. We've just started attaching claims to all of our redevelopment commission meetings, so the financial information is there. Anybody from the public can go on the gateway and look up what our TIF districts are, what our revenue is, what our expenses are. I can look at other communities and find out what they're doing. So it's all public information.
Anecdotally, the legislature was concerned in some other communities, perhaps to our north, that
Yes.
it wasn't quite as transparent.
Yeah.
And I mean outside our county. I'm talking about north of Indianapolis, that maybe there were a lot of RDC funds that were being used to do projects and there wasn't a transparency.
Right.
So I think that was part of the legislation being passed to make sure that everybody knew.
There's a North Side redevelopment department with 32 employees, so I think you have a really good deal with me and Dana.
We know that.
But that was the genesis of
Yeah.
additional reporting, to make sure it was out there.
Krista, thank you for putting this document together.
Sure, yeah. Any other questions? I know it's a lot of information, so,
A lot of money.
yep.
Okay, so we just introduced ordinance 24-08.
Yes.
And we did your presentation of the redevelopment commission.
Yep, and that doesn't need an approval, just information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, approval of ordinance number 24-09, an ordinance prohibiting reckless driving expedition, City Attorney Lynn Gray, and this is also where I had approval here. It's actually introduction.
Correct, it's framed as approval, but this is the first introduction. Chief is here, and he's the one, along with the mayor, that actually brought this to my attention for introduction. And what we're trying to do here is preemptively address an issue that we hope doesn't arise, but to give our officers the tools necessary if there is a circumstance where it does arise. Perhaps you've seen in the news in other communities where there have been things, I think, that are generally identified as street takeovers, where social media will announce, let's go someplace, and and do the wheelies and all the things that kids do these days, and they take over a street. And obviously, that's very, very dangerous, not only for the people participating, but for our citizens. And while we always have available in our toolkit criminal prosecution of things, Chief and Mayor also thought that we should have ordinance provisions that allow us, A, to fine the individuals if they are so doing so, and B, tow the vehicles immediately on the spot to get, to open up our streets again. So I have no knowledge of any of these instances happening here. I don't want people to be alarmed, but in the event that they do, I want our officers to be equipped with all the things they need to be able to address those individuals promptly in a timely basis. So that's for introduction purposes only. Chief, do you have anything to add?
It's a nice proactive measure for us, just another tool in the toolbox, rather, goes beyond, as Ms. Gray said, the criminal proceeding. It allows us to ticket, tow vehicles. We're starting to see some of these electric motorcycles pop up in the area, and those are motor vehicles also, but what people don't understand, that's a 50 to 80 mile per hour vehicle. Creating a little bit of, we have had some run-ins with a couple of those guys already, so we're just trying to get ahead of this so we don't have it in the cities.
In the ordinance itself, as you've heard me say before, sometimes we lawyers have never had an original thought in our life. We just copy off of each other. But these ordinances are also in place in some other jurisdictions that have had these kinds of problems, and they've been enforceable. So we, rather than reinvent the wheel, we crafted it for our particular instance, and Chief reviewed it, and then the mayor also reviewed it. And so it's for your consideration at our next meeting.
And I think what Chief and I were talking about this, and lo and behold, I go to a round table with mayors, and some other mayors have already experienced this, and that's why I think we need to get ahead of the game. And I do want to just point out that this last weekend, I think it was, we did have somebody get on our amphitheater grass, and they didn't do a whole lot of damage, but they did a little bit of damage, and that person was arrested. So I appreciate our police officers being on top of that and taking care of it, because we want to send a message. You tear up, or whatever you tear up down here, you're not going to get away with it if we can do something about it. So thank your police department, Chief, for that. Okay, that there is also introduction. The next item, which would be our last item, would be city council appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I know there's Mr. Joe Gruce is here. He's interested in that position. And I want to tell the story here of, this is a council appointment. I mistakenly asked him to be on the board before, actually Joanna and I both. I'm going to give Joanna some of the credit for making the mistake.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to take all the credit
And
for
she's not here. Okay.
And I'm going to take the credit for fixing it.
Yeah, so Joanna said, you know, I think that's really a council appointment. I go, oh, man. So anyway, I got a hold of Mr. Gruce and told him he needed to come and present himself to the council and tell you guys why you should appoint him, so.
Or he may be saying, no way.
Thank you, Mayor. Like he said, my name's Joe Gruce. I currently am employed in Franklin for a company by the name of Houston Electric. I do business development and project management for those folks. I'd like to think that I'm fairly involved personally and professionally with the city. I've spent 35 of my 47 years in Franklin, and my wife and I just purchased a home downtown, so we've been back for a little while now.
So does anybody have any questions for Joe?
Why'd you leave for 12 years?
For her.
That was a good answer.
Joe's big fan of your father as well.
Thank
I know
you.
he's a retired police officer. Did a really good job here in the city.
Thank you.
And look forward to working with you.
And that term expires because he's filling the place for Mr. Bill Carson, who I did appoint to the board. Okay, see, there was two that quit here, or stepped down. I won't say quit, they didn't quit. That stepped down. Joe Abbott stepped down. He was appointed by the Board of Zoning Appeal, or by the Plan Commission. And I had appointed Bill Carson. Well, Bill Carson, I appointed in Joe's place on the Plan Commission, so I thought I was replacing that one. That's how we got to that point. So Bill Carson's term would have expired December, let me get this right. Bill's term would have expired December 31st, 2026. So that's what this term would be for, and it would be up again at that time.
And Bill will still be on the Plan Commission and the BZA, but we pushed him over to Joe's position, and then this will be
Gotcha.
for Bill's position on the Plan Commission.
Okay.
So I think what we need to do is either a motion to approve or a motion to deny.
I move to approve.
Second.
Good thing, because you're going to have to come up with somebody else. If you don't.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve Joe Gruce for the BZA board until December 31st, 2026. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you.
Yep. Appreciate it. That gets us to council comments, and we'll start with Maddie down here with our Mayor's Youth Leadership Council.
So from the pickleball tournament, we made a profit of $857 for the pickleball lights. And we are working with Mr. Gruce from Houston Electric on the process of the lights and getting them on the court soon. And we are currently in the process of planning a team bonding event for the council.
Thank you. Do you want to introduce your comrades?
I have Anna Brumley, Grace McCullough, and Levi Martin here.
Thank you for attending. Okay, thanks. Irene?
Nothing for me tonight, sir.
Oh, good.
Todd?
I have two items. My wife and I were able to go to Porchtober the last 2 weekends, the very first time we've been. And I was wowed by the involvement of the citizens in Franklin, and it was a really good experience. So I just want to pass that out, shout out to them. Also, I'm involved in a Raising Spirits fundraiser, which is this Friday night. If I haven't texted you or talked to you about it, I'm very surprised. I'm sure you're shocked. But we raise a lot of money for a lot of nonprofits in the community, and it is almost a sellout of 500 tickets. So,
Good.
Thank you, Todd. Ken?
I just to counter, I mentioned that at the Board of Works meeting about the Porchtober Fest concert series. It was just a big hit. A lot of people. I mean, and the bands were great, and it's just a good time. Great for the community.
Thank you. Ann?
We'll be there Friday, Todd, so thanks.
awesome. Thank you.
But other than that, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Josh?
Nothing this evening.
Okay. Jan? Miss Gray?
You couldn't beat the weather. That's great. Nothing.
Okay, and I have nothing. Thank you all for attending tonight, and we will see you November the 4th.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.